Avast ye, ladies and gentlemen. It's time once again to pit two titans of television against one another in bloody combat. In this corner, monsters, and the challenger, are you afraid of the dark? This be Put Up Your Spooks! Our theme this week?
Deadly treasure. In keeping with the pirate theme, I am drinking an Anchorstein beer out of a Pirate's Dinner Adventure commemorative cup. And I have scurvy, full blown.
Ooh.
I'm Jeff. I'm repping the 80s.
I'm Ryan, and I, as always, am lovingly repping the 90s.
Let's get it on!
To the max. How's it going this week, Jeff?
It's going alright. What was once strange has become a new normal.
Much like Put Up Your Spooks.
Exactly. I'm so grateful that we had some great episodes to watch this week.
Well, why don't you tell us about one of those episodes?
All right. So, representing the 80s for the theme of Deadly Treasure is an episode of Monsters called Fool's Gold. So we start with a man in a hard hat going down into a basement construction site. And he takes a pickaxe to this stone wall. And as soon as he hits it, there's a break, an opening forms, and he starts to crawl in. He gets halfway through, and then he screams and flails as he dies horribly.
And gets stuck halfway through the hole.
Yeah.
Which
and,
I thought was funny.
It was perfect, because we didn't have to waste time seeing him go all the way through the hole.
Right.
And actually, he dies on the threshold, and it is up to the characters who will come next to cross that threshold. You know, they've been warned of danger, so this all works very well. So next we see two workers, Old Joe and Phil, and their supervisor Sherry come down the stairs into the basement. They pull out the dead guy, and they see that he was burned to death, and all they can think about is how this affects their work and pay.
They are not concerned about a dead man whatsoever.
At all.
Hey, lady, this job just got a lot more complicated and a lot more expensive.
Sherry wonders if they should call the police, but really no one's feeling it. So Phil is not afraid. He wants to go and check it out, but Joe refuses to let him take his pickaxe. He's like, hey, yo, I've been working with this pickaxe for 30 years. And then Phil finds a piece of gold in the dead man's hand. And if you thought Phil was eager for hazard pay, he is hell-bent for gold. So he grabs a flashlight and crawls through the crack in the wall, and he sees a cave on the other side. Meanwhile, Old Joe is hanging out with Sherry, and he's like, gold? Something that burns a man to death? I don't know, this is reminding me of tales from the old country. My grandma, she used to tell me all these crazy stories about trolls. While he's talking about trolls, Phil finds a treasure chest overflowing with gold. And right around then, creeping through the darkness, comes a little gasping, grunting creature, a troll. It grabs Phil's arm and scalds it. So Joe runs in and rescues him, gets him through the crevice, and then as he's struggling to get out through the crack in the wall, his foot gets cooked. So they both get out of the cave, both singed and worse for wear, and Sherry and Joe are freaking the fuck out. And they're ready to bolt, but Phil is all about that gold. He's like, come on, we gotta go back in there, there's gold! I didn't work this hard to come away with that not gold. And so Joe tells him he's nuts to try to go back in there with that troll guarding the treasure. And Phil is like, what? A troll? What are you talking about? That's nonsense. There's no trolls. Even though he just got attacked by a troll.
Oh, yeah.
So, he's blinded by gold. And so Joe fills him in. He says, listen, according to legend, a troll's blood is boiling hot, and it uses gold to lure people into its lair. Now, they fear sunlight, and the only thing that can kill them is iron. Hey, just like my old pickaxe. My pickaxe is made of iron. Well, he shouldn't have said that because that's all Phil needs to hear. He's like, great, they're afraid of light, we got iron, let's go get that gold.
Well, what is the matter with the two of you? It's as easy as winning the lottery. Now all we gotta do is go in there and get it.
They hook up a work light to an extension cord and go in. They use the work light to keep the troll away. They load a bucket up with doubloons and they get out, only to have a cave-in block their escape. So they're trapped in the basement. There's been a huge cave-in. They can't get up to the surface. And they're panicking, they're bickering, they're blaming each other for greed. And just then, the troll busts his hands through the wall and burns old Joe. And then does a Hey Kool-Aid and busts through the wall and goes after Phil. Phil stabs it in the chest with the iron pickaxe, and it just takes a geyser of boiling hot troll blood to the face, which I was not expecting. That was awesome.
That was.
I mean, talk about setup and payoff.
Yep.
So Sherry's trying to claw through the cave-in by hand, and she's not making a lot of progress against these tons of rock. And wouldn't you know it, the troll's not finished. So the troll is grabbing her, it's burning her, and she finally pulls a rock loose, and then sunlight floods into the basement and burns the troll to ash. And it's about that time that old Joe regains consciousness. His first question is,
Do we get overtime for this?
Oh, man. These guys, especially the younger guy, he was like, a dead body, it's our coworker. Let's go get that gold. Put him in the corner.
I mean, even before they found the piece of gold in the dead man's hand, Phil was like, what's that light in there? Like, he was already willing to step over a dead coworker just to see what was on the other side.
Yeah.
Those guys were foolhardy for fool's gold.
The funniest part was that when they went back the second time to get the rest of the treasure, they filled a small pot, like a small cooking pot, halfway with gold, and then they were like, okay, we're good, let's get out of here.
Yeah, I thought for sure they were going to try to drag the chest out or something.
They didn't try to drag the chest out.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe
they were just pacing themselves.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was actually, a lot of these Monsters episodes we've seen, they usually only have one location. And so I thought they did a really good job with the cave set decoration. And it was almost like that episode we watched called The Hole with Vietnam. Remember where they went down into the tunnels and stuff? And my complaint about The Hole was that you didn't know what the threat was. Because there were zombies, but the zombies were kind of literally faceless. And they didn't seem to be the main threat. And it was the tunnels that were like alive that was the problem. Whereas in this episode, you had a specific supernatural threat. And it was using the stone and the darkness to trap the people. And the circumstances created claustrophobia, created strife. So it's kind of like the perfect version of The Hole.
Yeah. We
had another light-sensitive spook, like we did in the episode of the Bigfoot Ridge cabin with the Umbra. And in the end, it was sunlight what done it. And so I think, once again, they could have used my sun lens technique to try to shine sunlight into, the troll's cave and kill him. I thought it was a really nice, tight episode. It's hilarious how they refuse to be dissuaded by their coworker's dead body or by the fact that they're being attacked by a killer troll.
They didn't even call 911.
It kept the plot on rails.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting things for me was that the guy that played Phil, the young construction worker obsessed with gold, was Jeff Conaway from Grease and Taxi.
Oh, yeah.
And I was looking up his other credits. So not only was he in this episode of Monsters, he's in Freddy's Nightmares, Tales from the Dark Side, the Elvira movie, and he's in a weird anthology movie called Stephen King's Golden Tales. But it made me think that there must be some kind of EGOT version for these weird old 80s and 90s horror anthologies. I'm now on a quest to find the actor that's been in the most, Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt. I don't know if there's going to be like an 80s only category or someone who crosses over. Someone who's on Freddy's Nightmares and Are You Afraid of the Dark?
That would be something.
The break's over, old man. Come on, back to work.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the episode I brung you this week is, of course, Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of Cutter's Treasure, which is another two-parter. Jeff and I were really anxious to get some Vink in our blood, and so there's only a couple of Vink episodes that we haven't done, and this is one of them.
Waiting for the battle, lad. Are you a match for me?
Ian Keegan is a pirate who's trying to kill another pirate, Cutter, to avenge all his dead bros. But Cutter gets the drop on him when Ian turns his chair around. It's a skeleton. And then Cutter comes out and says,
I plan to guard my treasure till the day I die. Ian Keegan, longer if need be.
And then Ian curses him with all the anger of his victims. And then Cutter slices his fucking throat with a saber. Cut to present day. Russell, our hero, is making time with a cute little girl, Sandy, played by Emily Hampshire. I was like, she looks familiar, and she is in that show Schitt's Creek that I actually used to cut promos for and has become pretty popular. And she's in like a ton of stuff. She's like a really prolific Canadian actress.
Yeah, as soon as I saw her, I was like, that looks like Stevie from Schitt's Creek, and I looked it up, and
sure
boom.
Enough, it was. I didn't know you watched Schitt's Creek.
Just started.
Maybe I already told you the story, but they were trying to put together a promo for like the premiere on Pop, you know? And so they gave me all this footage, and they were like, yeah, you gotta cut this thing down. So I cut it, and they were like, and you know, when you're working in an on-air promo, you have to stick to like 30 seconds or 15 seconds. It has to be frame accurate. And we kept showing it to the director of the commercial, and he kept being like, no, not like that. You gotta do it more like this. And finally he took it and made a cut of his own to be like, this is how you're supposed to do it, idiot. But the cut was like 42 seconds long. And so I was like, well, that would be great if we could do it. So anyway, I cut that promo finally, and everyone like approved it. And I think I cut like some other sizzle reel or something that they could take to the upfronts. And we did such a good job on those that the CEO of the company gave us each a bottle of like whiskey as like thanks, like our whole team. And then I got laid off. But they just didn't know what they had there. Anyways, back to the episode. Russell and Sandy are about to kiss. He's super awkward, but he's still somehow got ladies fawning all over him. They're about to kiss, and his little brother, Max, turns on the sprinkler and gets him soaking wet. So he chases Max down, and he's like, I'm going to crush you, Toe Jam, or something. And then they get to the front yard, and the parents are like, well, we're going away for the weekend on our bike trip. So long. Your babysitter's on the way. And they're like, we don't need a babysitter. And he's like, aren't you just the person who just called your brother Toe Jam? Or whatever. And so they leave, and the babysitter comes, and Russell and Max convince the babysitter through the mail slot that they have measles, and everyone stayed home sick. So the babysitter goes, and they're like, yeah, thank goodness, the whole weekend all to ourselves. And Max is like, what are you and me going to do, big brother? And Russell's like, fuck off. I hate your guts. I wish you would die. Leave me alone. And Max is really bummed because all he really wants is just to hang out with his big brother, whom he loves more than anything in the world.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal, but very on brand for Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, except that in this situation, the big brother is our hero. Or our main character, as opposed to the Phantom Cab one. So Max keeps bugging Russell, and he says, he's going to tell the parents what they did and stuff, unless Russell agrees to buy him a Shandu magic kit from Sardo's Magic Mansion. And Sardo, of course, a character that we've seen before, and Shandu is a wizard from a different episode.
Awesome.
Which you have not seen yet, but one day.
Worlds collide.
So he goes, and Sardo is there, and he's really trying to upsell him on a bunch of junk that he doesn't want. But Russell notices there's like a sort of a treasure chest over in the corner with a prize to whoever can open it. Sardo's like, no, you can't open it. I've tried dynamite, I've tried, crowbars, I've tried everything. And Russell just immediately opens it. And inside is just like a rusty dagger, a rusty key, and like a busted spyglass. But he takes it anyway because Sardo insists, and he gives it to Max, and Max says the spyglass isn't busted. But just at that moment, Sandy shows up for another rendezvous. So Russell goes off to take care of her.
So in the beginning, when Russell is sitting on a blanket with Sandy, and they're kind of hiding behind the bushes, when he goes to take her hand, he doesn't just hold her hand like we've seen a trillion times in shows and commercials and movies, he grabs her hand and manipulates it and like carries it over towards him. And I swear to God, he was going to put it on its junk.
I mean, that's the move, right? Isn't that the move?
If his brother hadn't interrupted them, that was going down south, literally, very quickly.
They were...
I'm just saying, if you look at that scene again, the way he takes her hand is unlike any romantic hand-holding gesture you've ever seen.
I have to imagine, as a young actor, like a, 14-year-old actor, when the directors are like, okay, you're going to take her hand, and then you're going to kiss her. If it was me, I'd be like, what? I remember I had to, when I was in Music Man in middle school, they put me in one scene, like after the big Shapoopy dance, where all the kids are sitting around the park gazing lovingly into each other's eyes. And so I had to, like, sit with this girl and, like, pretend that we were all lovey-dovey. And I did such a shit job that the director took me out of the scene and replaced me with somebody else. Because I didn't know what I was doing.
Wow. Well, at least you didn't grab her hand and put it on your junk.
Well, maybe that's why he took me out of the scene, actually.
So Russell must have been super horny because he is told to take an old pirate dagger and he has zero interest.
You've seen his shirt. It's very Are You Afraid of the Dark, Johnny Angel, puffy, gotta get laid shirt. I mean, yeah, he's got one thing on his mind.
I know, but, like, I'm a red-blooded American male. I would take an old pirate dagger, just as long as I was on my way out the door.
Well, he did take it. But you're right, he was not very interested.
But not a red-blooded American male, because he says, do you think there's any chance we could make out?
I don't suppose there's any chance we could make out.
One of my notes is so much accent in this episode. This episode was the most Canadian of all the episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps combined.
Accent on the dough.
Sorry, Canadians. I fucking love you guys. It should also be noted that the dagger, the rusty dagger, is Ian Pirate's dagger from the prologue. So Max is all alone in his room, and the spyglass starts a-spinning. So it freaks him out, so he runs down, he breaks up the new makeout session to show Russell, who does look through the spyglass and sees kind of like a blurry cemetery, and up in Max's empty room, his window blows open in a smoky explosion, Badge style, so you know some shit's going down. He goes back up to his room after getting, presumably, beaten, and the spyglass knocks off the bureau, rolls to the bed, and then he goes to grab it, and a fucking skeleton grabs him and tries to drag him under the bed. He screams for Rush, which is his nickname for Russell. So Rush comes in, and the skeleton disappears, and Sandy is like freaked out, so she leaves because she keeps getting interrupted by, she's like, oh, Max is cute, and Russell's like, he's a fucking little disease festering on my asshole, and it really kills the mood for her. So he really should have just been like, oh yeah, he is, what a little scamp. Then he would have gotten the hand on his junk voluntarily, probably.
Look, Sandy came to play. She'll be back.
I suppose. So she leaves, and Rush again is like, I fucking hate you. I wish you would get out of my life forever.
I hope you get abducted by ghost pirates.
And then cut to Russell is walking around in like a trippy drug-induced cemetery, and the Ian Pirate, who's now a ghost, comes out and tells him,
what he wants is not what he desires.
And he's like, what? But then he wakes up, and it was just a dream. And he looks through the spyglass, and he sees himself in the graveyard, so it's crazy weird. So he goes back to Sardo, and he gives all the stuff back and leaves, and then Sardo's like, no, I won't get my money. But then a shadowy figure tells him, let him go. He'll be back, and send him to me when he comes. Back at the house, Max is there all alone. He goes outside, he's kind of being called by some unseen force, I think. He finds the spyglass on a tree stump by the waterfront, even though Russell just returned the spyglass. Russell gets home, he's looking for Max, he can't find him anywhere. He must have heard a noise in the closet or something. He opens the closet door, and there's a note with a dagger, hook style. And it's like, the boy's ours, arr. And
Ours.
So then, back outside, there's a ghost boat coming for Max, who's totally in a trance. Russell finds him down there, but the ghost boat lands, and he's like, hey, I don't know who you are, but you better go away. And the ghost boatman turns around, and it's a skeleton! A lot of turning around skeleton reveals. But then the skeleton morphs into a scurvy, syphilitic pirate, Mr. Noise. And they run away. They lock themselves...
Skelemorph.
Skelemorph. That's a show.
Dude, Skelemorph for the win. That was awesome.
It was.
Did not see that coming.
When he skelemorphs, it's like...
oh, it's another turnaround skeleton reveal.
Turnaround skeleton, which then gets like covered in a layer of goo and slime and blood and pus, and then into a syphilitic pirate. It was a very nice transformation.
Awesome.
So they lock themselves in the house, they're running around, but then Mr. Noise is in their house. They turn around and run the other way, but then Ghost Cutter Pirate is there. And so they're trapped. They can't escape. So Cutter kidnaps Max, and him and Mr. Noise vanish. Then Russell goes back to Sardo, who apparently lives in the Magic Mansion because it's closed, it's nighttime, and he comes out from the back. Sardo, good to his word and to his desire for $5,000, sends him to Vink at the Wild Boar Coiffure in total Bumtown. So, like, Russell's wandering through Cracktown. He finally finds the Wild Boar Coiffure, and Vink brings him in. Oh, so, surprise, surprise, the shadowy figure who's giving Sardo instructions is none other than Dr. Vink with a va.
So, were you keeping this a surprise for me? Because I knew it was a Vink episode. I had no idea there was a Sardo plus Vink episode.
I just don't think I thought to mention it, but were you delighted?
I was delighted. I was going in expecting Vink, and I got a Sardo, and then Vink, and I was just an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah. So Vink is he's a sloppy, wild inventor again. He's got like shit all over his shirt. And he puts.
But he's a barber.
He's an enthusiast
Stylist?
of coiffure. He says like nobody cares about coiffure anymore.
Of course, patrons are less interested in coiffure than they are in my unique hair tonics.
And he tries to massage a few drops into Russell's scalp, but Russell's like, no, I just need to get my brother back. And Sardo told me to come here. So he tells him the story of Cutter, the pirate, and the treasure. And he's like, and it's up to you to break the curse of Cutter. And Russell's like, why me? And then he's like, what's your name, boy? Your full name. And he says, Russell Ian Keegan. And the pirate from the prologue was named Ian Keegan. And so he shows him the bottom of the chest, in which is carved the name Ian Keegan. So Russell realizes he's a descendant of the pirate that Cutter murdered in the prologue, and only he and his bloodline, I guess, can break the curse of Cutter.
We've seen Vink in a variety of stations in life and undeath so far. We've seen him as a mad scientist ghost. We've seen him as a filmmaker. And now we see him as the owner of a coiffure shop. But really, the strangest turn of this whole thing is that he's the quest giver.
He's not an antagonist in this one.
Yeah. He's like the weird old wise mentor that appears to guide you to your destiny, which, was great, but just unexpected.
Russell realizes what he's got to do. He takes the dagger back, but now it's clean and rust-free. So they go to the cemetery, and Vink is in it because he wants treasure to fund his, quote, unique endeavors. So Ian Ghost comes out again and reiterates his message about what he wants is not what he desires. Russell goes into a crypt, and he opens a coffin, I guess. It's a skeleton! And the skeleton says,
Welcome aboard, Skipper!
And then he falls through the floor. He's trying to get out, but like trapdoors are closing, gates are coming down. Cutter is kind of herding him into an inner sanctum. He reaches an antechamber, and Mr. Noise, the syphilitic pirate, comes out, but Russell manages to blast Mr. Noise with a dagger laser. Then he finds the inner sanctum, the treasure room, and Max is in there in a big bird cage. They kind of reconcile. He's like, oh, all I ever wanted was to hang out with you, and Russell's like, I'm sorry I told you should die and that you were a festering boil on my asshole. Oh, you didn't hear that part? Well, never mind. Forget I said anything. But then, ba-boom, Cutter's there, and he attacks, and he pulls out his saber, and he obviously gets the drop on Russell. He's like, you gotta fight. This is the grand battle that I was promised, that I've been waiting for 200 years. And Russell's like, well, I don't know how to fight. Well, I'm just a kid. And then Cutter's like, well, then I'll have to slash your fucking face. And but then Max escapes from the cage, grabs up the dagger, and provides the distraction needed for Russell to kind of barrel roll out of there, get the dagger, and be like, now you die, you first. And hit him with the dagger laser, which sends Cutter flying back into a chair. A bunch of vines tie him up there, and Cutter is raving. He's a lunatic. He's like,
Come on, Skipper! Use the bloody dagger! You cannot hurt me! I'm already dead!
And Vink's like, do it, lad. Run him through. And Russell's like, you know what? What he wants is not what he desires. He's stuck down here. And so he makes the decision not to kill Cutter, thereby certainly dooming his dead ancestors and Cutter's victims to a life of wandering beyond the grave.
He snapped the dagger over his knee.
Yeah, not full tang.
Which, bold move, since that could have sliced open his
femoral artery,
his hand and his femoral artery. I think the dagger was the embodiment of the curse that Ian and all the other victims had laid.
Yeah.
This is a dual curse situation. Cutter vowed to protect the treasure beyond the grave. Ian cursed Cutter that he and all his victims would oppose him and torment him. So I think breaking the dagger freed Ian and all the other spirits, but Cutter was still bound by his curse to the treasure. It would have been violent for Russell to give in to his destiny and stab the old ghost pirate like Vink was trying to urge him on to do, but instead he's leaving him there to be tormented for eternity, which is a greater act of violence. I think.
It's hideous, completely hideous. Although I don't know why the dagger laser didn't destroy him, but anyway, because he was bound by his own curse. But he breaks the dagger, and then the cave starts collapsing. So they run away, and Cutter's in there just raving. They make a daring escape. Out in the graveyard, Ian Ghost, of course, is like, you did the right thing, so now I'm free. They're looking through the spyglass in the cemetery, and when they lower the spyglass, they're home again, and it's bright daylight. They've reconciled as brothers. Vink comes out and says, well done, lad, you've done it. You beat him at his own game. Russell's like, sorry you didn't get your treasure. And Vink's like, don't worry, boy. My Vink always sounds like that. He's always saying, don't worry, in my mind. He says, don't worry. The adventure's the real treasure. But then he gives each of them a jewel. So he pocketed some treasure to fund his various endeavors. And then Sardo comes out, and I don't know how he knew where Russell lived, but he's there. And he's like, what the fuck, bro? I didn't get none of my money. And Vink's like, don't worry. I'll give you your money. And they leave. The parents come home, and they're like, you'd never believe the crazy adventure we had. Russell and Max are like, yeah, we probably won't. And then Vink and Sardo leave bickering, and then that's the end.
It was a real head-scratcher of an episode, but, man, in terms of skeletons, I don't know if we've ever had this many skeletons in an episode.
Skeletons per capita, body count high.
Yeah, skeleton count high, for sure. Sardo was definitely true to form. Even in the midst of it all, I don't think he really believed anything supernatural was happening.
No, he just wants that money.
He was a very strange character. I like the actor. I'm not sure I really am on board with Sardo as a character.
I don't think you're supposed to be on board with Sardo as a character.
He makes no sense. Like Dr. Vink, force of chaos, but he knows that ghosts exist because he is a ghost and also a scientist and also a stylist. Whereas Sardo is constantly giving out magic items, receiving magic items, seeing magic items at work, and has no interest in magic items, doesn't really believe that magic is a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's like a guy with like a brain tumor or something.
I will have to
weird.
say that while I'm fully on board for the interconnected Vinkiverse,
Yeah.
I don't follow the same rules for the Sardoverse. I think every episode Sardo is a new Sardo. And so by the end of the episode, he sees that magic is real. But when that episode ends and Sardo appears again in another episode, he's charlatan Sardo all over again, and he has to be convinced again that magic is real.
For all we know, in the back of Sardo's Magic Mansion, there's one of those prestige machines where a freshly born clone of Sardo comes out every time someone enters the store.
Every time someone murders him.
Yeah, Dr. Vink has probably killed him at least 2 or 3 times. So I was really surprised that Cutter was played by the actor Charles Dutton, who's like a well-known, well-respected powerhouse of an actor.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to say that Arthur and Drew could totally pull off a Cutter pirate costume.
I didn't want to say anything, but I was getting such a Drewy vibe off of Cutter.
Yeah, he had big Drew energy. And I don't know if there is some kind of Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps con, but we need to go. We need to get Drew in a Cutter costume.
I gotta say about Charles S. Dutton, he was fucking doing it to it in this episode. He probably agreed to do it just because he was like, I get to play a ghost pirate? Fucking A, of course I'm gonna do that. And he's really chewing the scenery, but he's doing it just to the nines. 150%.
Charles Dutton is great in everything. Of course, he jumped at the opportunity to be a ghost pirate. I think maybe his agent or manager sent him some tapes and like, oh, this is a Dr. Vink episode. So he watched Dr. Vink and it was like, oh shit, I need to like go balls to the walls. Yeah, I need my Vink factor to be high in this episode. And it was. Possibly, he may have out-Vinked Vink.
He may have double Vink factor.
Dr. Vink?
Precisely.
All right, speaking of Vink Factor, let's jump into some ratings. So, for Monsters, Fool's Gold Scare Factor, I'm going to put it at medium.
I will say medium, because there were a lot of shots, unfortunately, of that troll just kind of like peeking out from behind stalactites. It was like they were like, ooh, we didn't fill up the full half hour. We need some filler material. Let's put in 5 more shots of the troll peeking from behind the stalactite.
Are You Afraid of the Dark? Scare Factor?
There's a lot of cool sort of jumpy scares. There's a lot of skeletons. When Mr. Noise morphs from a ferryman skeleton into a pirate. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, you've got skeletons jumping out and grabbing people. You have menacing ghost pirates. There's deadly traps and spikes and things like that. Like, the scare and thrill factor, high.
Yeah.
Gross factor for Fool's Gold, I'd put it at medium, pretty gross. And definitely when Kaneki got just melted by the buckets of boiling troll blood. That was awesome. Gross factor for Cutter's Treasure?
I think the grossest part is that transformation. The what did you call it? Skelemorph?
Skelemorph?
Yeah, the Skelemorph.
Skelemorph was so juicy and gross.
Pretty gross. Vink, of course, is gross with all the goo slopped on his shirt.
Also, he's wearing like a bathrobe over like old suit. And it's just stained and sloppy.
I wonder if that's a stipulation in the actor's contract where he's like, I'll do your show, but I gotta wear a bathrobe. Or
just that he provides his own wardrobe. Body count. Do you include the troll?
Oh, yes, of course. You gotta include that troll, so that's 3.
So Fool's Gold has a body count of 3. We had Jerry in the beginning, we had Phil, and we had the troll that got vaporized.
Yep.
Cutter's Treasure.
Cutter's Treasure, body count uncountable. There's so many skeletons and mentioned victims of Cutter, an entire ship's worth.
I'm just going to say body count high.
Body count high.
Okay, Fool's Gold, what the factor? You know, we commented on their weird, blasé greed. They were just stepping over people's dead bodies to, like, check out weird lights and gold coins, and they were very focused, and that kind of broke reality somewhat.
Yeah.
But it also kind of heightened it. It made them these sort of cartoonish, gold-fevered villains.
Yeah. It's possible that the fairy lights had some kind of thrall effect.
I mean, they were pretty quick to demand higher pay as soon as they saw the first corpse, so I feel like that was in character.
That's true.
Other than that, I thought it was all pretty logical in terms of setup, payoff, the iron, the troll blood, the sunlight. I thought that all worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Cutter's Treasure, what the factor?
I would say medium high?
The ending was so confusing, where everyone was begging Russell to use his dagger and fulfill the destiny and kill the pirate, and the pirate's freaking out. He doesn't do it, and we don't know which ghosts are staying and which are going and what it means.
What he wants is not what he desires, so he wanted to be free of his curse. He didn't want to have to stay and guard that treasure anymore because he's bored. He's bored senseless.
Yeah, he wanted one big last battle, and then he wanted to be free of his curse. But the decision to leave him trapped...
Dick
yeah,
move.
totally.
Dick move, Russell.
Dick move. What the factor? Very high.
High. Skyrockets.
Yeah. Okay, Vink factor.
Ooh. Vink factor monsters. Old Prospector was a little Vinky, even when, especially when he got covered in troll blood.
Touch of the Vink.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got a touch of the Vink, do you?
Okay, Vink factor for Cutter's Treasure.
No, Vink factor low.
I mean, you're already...
Just kidding.
You're at 100% because you got Vink in it.
You got Vink.
And then Sardo, I think, gives you at least 20% extra Vink factor.
20% Vink boost. You have Vink vinking out, inventing things, being sloppy, trying to massage the scalps of little boys. And then, yes, Cutter.
I'd put this at like 165% Vink factor.
Maybe even 167% Vink factor.
All right, theme of Deadly Treasure.
Monsters, high.
High theme.
I would give monsters a little bit of an advantage on Are You Afraid of the Dark over Deadly Treasure because that treasure led directly to their dooms. And the treasure in Cutter's Treasure, it didn't actually kill anyone or doom anyone.
That's true. That's true. Still, I think on body count, it's going to edge out the Deadly Treasure.
I win! U.S. Canada. U.S. Canada.
Do we get overtime for this?
Thanks for sticking with us during these troubled times. And to all of yous at home, we say...
Rerun for your lives!